This is Barry Burnett, and you're back with Investing Insights with Barry Burnett on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We'd like you to sign in at barryburnett.net to get your questions answered, to be introduced to top professionals, top vendors, top lenders, all the fabulous things. But we also want you to sign in to barryburnett.net to enter for 2 fabulous tickets to Malbec Argentine restaurant in extremely chic and trendy Toluca Lake. We're discussing and delving deeper into the D's of real estate investing. We're talking about design. Design a path for yourself, for your emotions, for your available funds, for your resources. Something that fits you, not to fit your daddy or this is not your daddy's Oldsmobile. Remember that? So they talk about how this better actually fit you. We want this to fit you. There are a lot of places that you can design your path with your own money. Some people invest from their own personal reserves, savings. Some people invest from inheritances that they just received from Aunt Tilly, who left them a boodle of money, and now they're scratching their head saying, okay, what do we do? Or maybe Aunt Tilly left you a property somewhere that just doesn't fit. You can exchange out of that property into something that provides your dreams and fits you emotionally. Other people invest money from a refinance of properties that they already own. There had been a long period of time when there were equity home lines of credit available. Equity lines of credit were, frankly, very much abused in the 2005, 2006, 2007 cycle, and people ended up borrowing out more than the value of their home when the market tumbled. But they're back, and there are a lot of investors and a lot of lenders who are prepared to give equity lines of credit. So perhaps you think that your property has not recovered. Well, maybe it has recovered sufficiently that you could consider refinancing and reinvesting some of those funds. You want to call barryburnett.net or contact barryburnett.net so that you can get the access to the lenders who can help you get access to your money. Also, you can consider a sale or exchange into properties that suit you more fully at this point or this season in your life. Things change. Lives change. Maybe the kids have grown up and you've just finally made the last payment on the college tuitions, and you're looking at a whole different lifestyle and smack in the face with the concept of retirement. We just paid for college. How do I cover retirement? Well, maybe you cover it by exchanging out of some things that aren't really doing very well for you and get into something that does. And a lot of people don't realize you have access, usually through your financial planners or through mechanisms written right into them through the rules of the federal government and the state of California, to borrow pension funds to invest in real estate. Your pension funds can actually go to work for you. Now, with the stock market hitting record highs, maybe you're getting a little nervous that you're overly invested in the stock market and consider reinvesting. So maybe it's time to take your sales in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and consider reinvesting them. But perhaps you also have cash value in some of your long-term whole life insurance policies. So perhaps you have money that you haven't thought about or haven't scratched your head towards, and you can design a path with the money you already have in your savings. If you've just tuned in, you're listening to Barry Burnett, your host on Investing Insights with Barry Burnett, and we're delving deeper into the D's of real estate investment. Right now we're talking about designing a path for yourself, where you're going to come up with your money, and that's a big question. If it's your money, maybe yours and your spouse's, that's one set of emotional considerations, and it's just make sure that the two of you are on the same page. Because if you bull ahead, you might end up getting the short half in a divorce. And that's not good planning, and it's not good operation of your life. So make sure that you're on the same page when you get ready to invest with your spouse, because they've got a lot to say about it. In fact, according to the state of California, they've got half to say about it. But you want to make the mix a little larger, you can look at relatives or family members. Yeah, generally there are strings attached to those. So find out what the strings are and make sure you can live with it before you jump into some tantalizing investment. It'll never come up under the market again. Well, they do. So don't string yourself along or do something really crazy or stupid and tie yourself to some property that you think will never happen again by getting into strings attached. Beware of those. Then, outside of family, there are other investors, maybe friends of yours that you've talked with since childhood about investments. Find out if you're going to do equal work, if you're going to have equal tie, equal say, equal emotional involvement. That's going to make a huge difference in the way you design your path. So if you're going to be involved in partnerships, you also have to look at the legal structure. If you're in a partnership, make sure it's on contract. If it's an LLP, limited liability partnership, and somebody sues you for a trip and fall, that would probably usually, check with your attorney, usually keep you from having a loss on other properties besides just this one. So you're not jeopardizing mama's house. The last thing you want to do is to find yourself investing in a piece of property that goes south and then suddenly you're living on the street. That's really uncool, and your spouse is not going to appreciate it. But an LLC, if you go in because somebody said, oh yeah, have a limited liability corporation. A corporation, once you sell, that's a taxable event. You can't exchange out of a corporation. So you don't want to be in that situation unless that's really the situation you want to be in. Now, there are other sources for money. One of them is hard money. There's always somebody who has a lot of money who wants to put it out at a high rate, and if it fits your risk scenario and if it fits your timing, just be aware there are high costs, there may be penalties, and they may require you to cross-collateralize or sign your responsibility to multiple properties to protect their interest. It may be a very good source. There are lots of sources. Remember, knowledge mitigates risk. The more you know about going into this, the safer it's going to be at every stage. So let's look at risk factor on designing a plan. There's a low risk scenario, moderate risk, and wild crazy man risk. So each one of them has different scenarios. On the low risk, you may want to be careful about leveraging, because the last thing you want to do is to spend money out of a home equity line and put mama's house at risk. That would not be cool. So you want to be careful about potentials for low risk. You want to be careful of economic upheaval. If you end up having a long-term series of vacancies, can you afford to keep it? If you don't have reserves, you're probably over-leveraged, and that's not safe. So for a low risk, you want to look at safety. Moderate risk, you might have a larger reserve account. You might look at this and know about it and have a sufficiency of cash reserves and access to other sources. That may be where you keep the guy with the hard money on speed dial, where if you get into a tight, you have a way to protect yourselves. Those things, that's really important. You may look at moderate risk to be sure that you can afford to absorb the loss. Be sure that you're not risking everything, and be sure that you can handle the emotional stresses of lengthy delays, redesigns, remanufactures. So you also want to consider unforeseen government interventions, such as when they're going to be putting a freeway through your living room, or competition, and maybe the cost of work estimates. Maybe you just didn't realize how much it was going to take to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act, and you find yourself tapping into your reserves far deeper than you thought, and then a vacancy comes. Well, that's a lot more risk. So moderate risk, you got to be sure you can handle it. You got to be sure you're emotionally tied with it, because that may be a stressor to your home life, and home life needs to be sufficiently insulated for investments. We'll be right back with more of the D's of real estate investing, delving deeper into your dreams with Barry Burnett on Talk Radio 790 KABC.